What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 live stream for this week's Charles Schwab Challenge. Going to go through what to expect from Saturday's conditions, the DFS, and the prop side of things. Make sure you're ready for all of your exposure. But first off, welcome on into the live chat. So first off, we got Manny down there. Welcome on in. We'll get to your question when we get to the DFS section. But first off, just hoping that you're having a solid Friday evening or having a solid start to the week like I am. I've got a ton of 6 of 6s. I've got 24 out there in my 150 max. So that is 16% of my portfolio. So feeling pretty good about that. And we've had 2 profitable days over there for the prop side, with both sites being profitable for both rounds. So that has been about as good as it could have been. No super smash day yet. We did have over a 5-unit profit day on Prize Picks today. I wouldn't call it a nuclear day, though. When we have one of those over the weekend, it'll be when the prop side is truly satisfied. So we'll see. We're still going after it there. And then, of course, for the GPPs, we've got to make some of those 6 of 6s actually come through. So still a lot of work that has to be done. But just looking forward to the weekend. Definitely set up good for some sort of finish out here. And hopefully you guys are doing the same. We got Phil down there. What's going on, Ross? We got Brian down there. Also, Devin. Hopefully, you guys are having a solid Friday out there. I'm just sipping on some water, ready to go out there, build some lineups. And then we'll let the good old shenanigans begin afterwards. But let's keep it serious for the live stream, right? What we're doing out here, our work for Saturday. So in terms of the scoring today, we did get an advantage for the PM wave. Now, it wasn't like a stroke advantage, but we weren't really expecting that, right? I thought it might be like a stroke difference between the 2 waves. Ended up being exactly half of that, right? About a quarter stroke difference towards the PM wave. And because I still opened up my lineups to AM guys, we played a Scotty Scheffler, right? I mentioned I'm playing a Jordan Spieth player like a Sungjae Im, right? Who shot -6, right? Those were the AM guys that I played. So it wasn't like we had a huge advantage for the PM wave, but because we had that slight advantage, right? Even though it was only about a quarter of a shot, and we played the right AM guys, I had an absolutely smash day, right? Made about 4x out there in my GPPs. I was in contention in a few of them for quite a while. So pretty solid there, right? Wish we would have had the takedown. I needed more Gary Woodland. Let's see who else just smashed today. I needed more Davis Riley, right? Went out there, shot -6. And then when you had guys super late, like a Pearson Cootie getting there, guys like even like Tway, Webb Simpson that went out there and smashed in the PM wave. I just didn't have those like slappies down low. So I did really good with the guys up top, right? Scotty bogey free round. That was an epic chip in on hole number 18. But overall, our process was sound today, right? Open up to both waves, but definitely favor the PM wave. And while it wasn't as big an edge as what I was hoping for, in practice, it still worked out, right? Nearly took down a GPP or 2. And essentially for the main slate perspective, right, I had 24 6 of 6 lineups. That's well over the field when it comes to the 6 of 6 rate, almost purely just because I took the right wave, right? The wave that on the first round had about a 0.9 shot advantage, right? Today had about a 0.25 shot advantage. So overall it was about 1.15 shots, right? Favoring those AM PM players, which again, doesn't sound like much, but it results in a pretty good setup out there for Saturday and Sunday. So I'll have plenty of 6 of 6s, right? I'll have plenty of lineups that can sun run over the weekend just because I went out there and looked at the weather. So it doesn't have to be a massive edge to be something that you can exploit. And that's exactly what we leaned into for Showdown in round 2. So just a little bit of a review right out there for the main slate, also for what we did out there in our last live stream. But now let's look at Saturday's weather and Saturday's tee time. So I guess even more importantly than looking at the weather situation, tee times are in twosomes off of hole number 1. So the only non-twosome will be Ben Silverman, who's going off as a solo out there at 8 a.m. Eastern. So that'll be 7 a.m. local time out there in the central time zone. We'll talk about Silverman later. Actually, I think he's a decent play out here for Showdown. But the last tee times, right, are the whole way at 1:55 Eastern. So well into the afternoon when the winds are going to be a lot higher. And importantly, it's going to be windy and extremely hot tomorrow. So it was hot, right? The course didn't really bake out this afternoon because of how humid it was. But when we look at this forecast for tomorrow, it doesn't look nearly as humid in the afternoon. So what you'll see on, let's get to the HRRR forecast. for Colonial Country Club. What you'll see out here for Saturday, right, is that early in the day, there's next to no wind, right? At 7 a.m. local time, there's 3 miles an hour sustained, and that pretty much lasts the whole way until noon, right? About 11 a.m. is when it starts to kick up until about 6 miles an hour, and then by noon, it hits the 11 miles an hour mark. So pretty much by the time the leaders are about to tee off is when you're going to see the winds really start to howl. What that means is that the first, let's say 2, 3, maybe even 3 hours of tee times are going to have almost perfect conditions for at least most of their round, right? Your early starters will get the entire round in right before the winds kick up. And even the guys starting off at like 9:30, 10 a.m. are going to have much better conditions for, again, a majority of their play compared to the guys that are in the lead. And of course, the ownership, just like for round 2 Showdown, is always on the top end of the board. So for round 3, there are no placement points, right? Maybe if you're new to playing PGA DFS, you aren't familiar with how that works. The placement points only come into play on Sunday, right? So for round 2, right, that wasn't in the picture. Same thing for round 3. So if all the ownership, right, is going to be on the guys playing in the hardest conditions, right, when the winds kick up, you can see that in the afternoon, right, it becomes sunny, right, goes from a little bit cloudy and probably a little bit murky. It's a little bit more humid, right, when you have those clouds coming through typically. When it's going to be sunny, just sun blaring down on these greens, the winds, right, go up to like 14 to 16 miles an hour of sustained winds. You can see the wind gusts are close to 22, even to 25 miles an hour at their peak in late afternoon. If this weather forecast holds, it's going to play at least a half a shot harder in the afternoon, if not up to an entire stroke harder than those early starters. So if that ends up being the case, at least that's kind of what I'm projecting for right now. I'm only playing morning guys. Now, you might want to take Scotty Scheffler. I think he's the one guy I'm taking that's starting a lot later. I'm playing Jordan Spieth too, who's like kind of towards the latter half of tee times. Right? He's not the last group out by any means, but definitely in like the last 2 hours of tee times. Outside of those two players, everyone we talk about tonight is going to be an early starter, right? That's going to be playing in these low sustained winds when I think the course is going to be a lot more receptive than in the afternoon, because this place is going to bake out, right? Especially as that wind and sun just blaring down, and just the wind conditions in general, right, are going to be much more difficult in the latter half of the day. So, right, today the weather edge wasn't massive. Tomorrow, I think there's a potential for a much larger weather edge. So while I still took players from both waves, out here for round 3, it's only like 2 guys, right, that I'm playing out there from the latter half of tee time. So one of them is the world number 1, and one of them is a player that I just refuse to fade, right? It's my favorite player in the world. I just pretty much play him regardless of whatever. I'll bet him pretty much at any golf tournament. So everyone has a guy that maybe you just play out there in GPPs. If you don't have a guy like that, right, just take all the morning guys, right? That's probably the way to go about it. So that's the way that I see this weather situation out. We'll circle back to this when we talk about props later. But unless this changes wildly, right, these early starters, and I would say the early starters probably like cut off in this like 9:30 range, like somewhere around this range is where, like, if you're teeing off at 10, like the last half of your round, right, is going to be played in the higher winds. But if you're teeing off at like 9 a.m., a majority of your play, maybe in the last like 1, 2 holes, maybe 3 holes, right, it'll be starting to kick up in terms of those sustained winds. All of these guys have perfect conditions. So it's not everyone that falls into this range. You can see, there's a decent amount of players, right, that are starting from Christian Bezainhood and up. But even the guys that are leaking into this 10:30 range, even 11 a.m., I much prefer than your guys down here at the top, right? If you're going to take somebody that's up here, they're going to be chalky too, right? Because of the leaderboard position, people are going to be getting to them in bunches. So they're going to be playing in harder weather. They're also going to have to take them at higher ownership. These are the kind of slates where if you just lean into that weather edge, you try and find some guys that are at least like kind of keeping it together, you can really go out there and find yourself into the top of the GPPs. So that's the way I'm playing it right now. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this weather report, of course, to make sure that nothing's, really changing all that much. But if we end up getting this kind of setup, it's looking like a pretty good slate to go out there and play some Showdown. So let me go ahead, bring up my projections. Let me get a sip of water here. We'll catch up on chat and start talking some DFS. So we've got Scotty on here as a play. I've also got Jordan Spieth, right, marked up here at $9,800. Outside of that, it is going to be all at least early, maybe mid-tier starters, right, in terms of tee time. So that's really the strategy for round 3 Showdown, right, is play the early starters. And then, of course, right, lean into the game theory edge, right? Make sure you're at least getting somewhat different out there in your lineup. But the added benefit of taking the weather edge is that you're getting lower ownership, right? The early starters are the players that aren't playing as well this week. So you're going to get them at lower ownership numbers, right? You know, some of your guys up top are still going to get some attention, right? Like a Hoagie, Bazane, Hoot, Cebu, right? Aren't going to be completely unowned. But down low, like your 6, 7K options that aren't playing well are almost all, I think, probably with the exception, let me get a sip of this, with the exception of just a few guys, right, are going to be sub 5% owned. What's going on? What happened to Batia? No idea. I saw he made like a 9 though. I think he must have had like a water ball out of a bunker. At least that's what the shot tracker said. And I didn't see a video of it. So who knows, right? Shot tracker lies all the time, but something crazy. Cheers to the weekend. Cheers to that. Congrats, Ryan. Yeah, so I kind of skipped over the comments before. I wanted to get back to them. I thought they were questions. You said, got your first big win on DraftKings tonight. That's awesome. Second in the 150K Showdown and second in the 22K Showdown for 12K. Thanks for the help, Luke. Those are the best messages, Brian. So good stuff. I saw you swim that out in the Ship It Nation Discord. So good stuff. I love to see that, right? And second off, let's run it back out here for round 3. So can't rest on your laurels. Go out there, right? Let's get after it for Saturday. And let's get you first this time so we can one up on that a little bit, right? Set a new personal record out there for you. What's going on? He said, what's up, Luke? Doing pretty well out here. I'm pretty stoked about how this week has gone so far. And we're going to get into some debauchery tonight out there with our buddies, just, you know, hanging out a little bit. We'll see. And he said the Rangers goal, let's get a Rangers goal like the last 3 streams. So I guess I'm the good luck charm for you, huh? You've been mentioning that the last few streams. Let's get it. 3 units cashed in on Prize Picks. There you go. You got 3 units today. Thoughts on Patrick Rogers? So good pivot play. So you said that the irons look good. I'll trust you on that. I'm sure the shots gained metrics are what you're referring to. I've got him at sub 5% ownership, or right around 5% ownership. I think he's slightly above 5, if anything. And he's, in terms of talent level, like, you're not getting anyone that's overly talented, right? I mean, like, he's the same kind of player as everyone in this range. But you have guys that are like double the ownership, right? You've got the Lee Hodges, the Webb Simpson, believe it or not, that's higher owned than somebody like a Patrick Rogers. I kind of like Emiliano Grillo here, right? As an earlier starter, also as somebody who's won at this golf course. But Patrick Rogers fits that same kind of role, and in fact is even lower owned than Grillo, I think, even though he's -1. So I'll have to double check on his ownership. In fact, I'll do that right now for you, just so that I'm not giving you anything that's incorrect. I think I might have them at higher than 5%. So yeah, just let me fact check that for you real quick. Oh, did I black out the wrong sheet? Looks like I did. So I'll have to check that on my phone later. Oh shit, it looks like I brought down my Excel sheet too. My bad, guys. And yeah, I think that I have them lower owned than Grillo, but neither one is mega chalky. That's for damn sure. Where were we at with chat? Bring in the W's, says Omar. Absolutely, of course. Over the moon with the 10K and 2K. Of course, dude. That's a huge score. It's something to be proud of. Celebrate for sure, and whatnot. Whether you're with your fiance, whether you're with your buddies, whoever the case may be, make sure to celebrate a little bit. What's going on? He said, good job, Brian. Enjoy the win for sure. Wave stack wasn't that big of an edge. It was 1.2 shots. If you think that's not a big edge, then I don't know what to tell you, Denny. I have 24 6 of 6 lineups pretty much just because of the wave edge. If you're talking about the round 2 Showdown, it was 0.25 shots, which again is also a pretty big edge. So I would say that you probably must be relatively new to PGA DFS. Even a 0.3 shot difference in a Showdown slate matters. That goes out there. You can see a difference in some of the ceiling scores. A 1.2 shot difference, it was 1.15 shots to be exact, over the first 2 days, is nothing to scoff at. In fact, that has a massive impact on how it plays out. In fact, that's why I'm having such a good week to this point. So I definitely disagree with that take. And frankly, I think you probably just don't know what you're dealing with when it comes to wave edge. That matters a lot. 0.3 shot wave matters. 1.2 shots really matters. You took Hoffman strokes and Ricky Birds. You aren't ever, I don't know what you're saying there. You're kind of saying, you're all over the place there, Chris. Welcome to the live chat though, buddy. You gained 2.98 on approach today. Manny, I think I've got to add him to the player pool. At -1, you know, he doesn't have the best tee time, right? He's going off a little bit later, but yeah, that's pretty awesome. When does Prize Picks pay out birdie or better matchups? I'm not sure. I don't play them, so I'm not really familiar with that. They probably wait to the end to do those, right? Because they probably get all the strokes, birdies, and all of that squared away. So I would imagine pretty soon for you, but you'd have to ask them. I'm not sure. Couldn't take your eye off a shot tracker. Yeah, I was watching that, man. You were sweating that hard, which that's how I sweat it. But I normally stay away from Discord, away from really any sort of social media when I'm doing that. I just kind of sweat it out on my own so that it's not publicly seen. So I definitely sweat and tilt my ass off, guys. Trust me. You won't see that from me on like social media though. It's not my thing. I like doing it in my own little bubble. It's a lot of fun though, that's for sure. All right, so let's talk through this. So with the wave edge that I think we have here for round 3, which I think at least half a shot, maybe even upwards of 0.7 shots out here for round 3, which would matter, by the way, just for the record, out there for people. That would be a massive edge out there for the morning guys. Guys like Scotty Scheffler are the only sort of players I'd take from the morning. Scotty Scheffler is just a much better player than everyone in this field. In fact, he's better than everyone else in the world. So give me anything less than $14,000 and I'm going to play him on a slate, especially when he's sub 40% ownership. So for the main slate, I faded him because he was 40% because I didn't want to lock him in all my lineups. But at 30%, like on a showdown format for 18 rounds, I'll play him in half my lineups, right? And even if that's not a pure 2x leverage on Scotty, like I'll take the 20% over the field stand, right, on Scotty Scheffler. Like that's enough of an over the field stand for me to feel decent about it, where I've got like half my portfolio where I'm working with that guy. He's super expensive, right? So he really changes like your lineup construction. And then the rest of my lineups, right, can be a little bit more balanced. So I'm going to have definitely a little bit of taste of both worlds, right? It's half my lineups that are going to be really spend up heavy with Scotty, and then the rest that are going to be extremely wave oriented, right? It's going after the early guys, right? Trying to take advantage of that weather edge. And probably avoiding Scotty, right? When I'm trying to lean into that, because he's a later starter, right? He would throw that off there, and you can't spend up for a lot of these early starters that are going off early. So we're going to talk up a few of them here. Jordan Spieth, right? Also like a later starter that I'm considering playing just because he had that putter come around and the tee to green play has been there all week. I mean, if he goes out there, he continues the tee to green play, right? He has a solid floor, but let alone if he continues to putt like he did for round 2. So, you know, I'm always going to play my boy Jordan, but I'll point him out as a play because he's playing well here, right? It's not like I'm telling you to play Jordan Spieth that doesn't look good. He made a few mistakes late, which they were on difficult holes, especially when the wind was kicking up towards the end of the AM wave. If you saw that, they were like 30-mile-an-hour winds out there for the last maybe hour of the AM wave. And that's when you saw a lot of guys crumble in the AM, which was great for our showdown lineups, right? Because we avoided a lot of those players. It ended up working out. Now, I played Jordan for showdown, so it kind of hurt me from that perspective. But guys like Scotty, right? He would have been hurt by it on his last hole, but he went out there and freaking chipped in, right? From God knows where. He had no business chipping in there on his last hole, but ended up doing that to save us. So it was just a tricky part of the day, right? Those winds were really nasty out there. So I'll take him out there for the Saturday round, right? It's going to be a little bit dicey late. He's going to have to navigate those winds. But if anyone's capable of doing that, it's Jordan, right? Who's playing very well out here in Texas. And he's going to have to be very aggressive, or he doesn't care about the top 10 at this sort of event on moving day with probably easier pins, right? Set up for aggressive play. Jordan Spieth is always a player I take on moving day, pretty much regardless of ownership and where he is, just because of his aggressive mindset. And moving day pins, they normally mesh very well, right? A whole take game at those pins, and normally you're very much so rewarded out here in moving day. Now, we could talk for hours about why that's the case, right? About the theory of moving day pins. But the way that it works is they put them in spots where if you go after it and you hit it to like 10, maybe 20 feet, a lot of times it feeds towards the hole, right? That's the way that they set up moving day pins. The reason for that is that when you miss a green on moving day pins, it's normally a really hard up and down. But if you execute the shot, right, you hit a ball that's a lot closer to the hole. So somebody like Jordan that'll just take on the pins has a lot of birdie or better upside with moving day sort of pin locations. Now, it'll change. It depends on what they actually choose for the pins, right? They could change it up, right? Maybe make it harder out here for Saturday. Who knows, right? It's at their discretion. But in general, right, when you get those sort of locations, it favors your aggressive sort of players. So Siwoo Kim is that same sort of guy, right? He's known for just taking aim at pins. It's why I love him out there for a round 3 showdown. So those are the sort of players I think that benefit from this kind of setup. And you can even say the same thing about Tom Hoagie, right? Another just darts player at this going off early, really good approach player that really didn't have that today. He was mediocre at best with the irons. And as somebody that's usually a lot better than that with the shots gained approach, is somebody that I'll look to for a little bit of a bounce back. So that is a look at some of my top end exposure. You can see, right, we had those two guys in a Jordan and Scotty Scheffler that I'm taking as a little bit of later starters. Outside of that, especially with our 8 and 6 and 7K players, it's going to be all guys that are going off early. So I'll catch up on chat, see if there's any questions about guys up top, and then we'll talk about some of our value plays. You were Swen blocked the last 4 holes. Dude, I was Swen him the entire day. He didn't make any birdies. So we had the elusive birdie-free round. And then, of course, he only made 3 bogeys, right? And we needed him to shoot 3 over par. So that was crazy. You were, you only got piped by 1.9 points. That's damn close. That's a third of a birdie out there on Showdown. Yeah, hey, I feel the good vibes, dude. Just go out there and improve on that by 1 position. And we can break that PR. I'm telling you, let's do it. Last guy in, who am I preferring? Choosing between a Meissner or a Troy Merritt. Now, I don't really love either option, but I think the shots gained metrics are really how we should settle that kind of dispute. So just to kind of take a look at those and remind ourselves of what we're dealing with. Where are they? So Meissner and then Merritt. I guess I'll just search on here. It's probably the best way to do this. So Troy Merritt, round 2, gained off the tee, lost everywhere else. And then Meissner's the other one. Meissner gained off the tee, gained around the green. So I'm not a huge fan of either one, but I guess Troy Merritt, just because Troy Merritt is a bit of an aggressive player. Like we've seen him have spike performances here in 2024. Like he's threatened first round leader a few times before. So probably him, just because I guess he has the track record of it. Meissner, I don't know what the upside is there. That's my opinion. Yeah, too many words. you were confusing me there, man. Hope I'm doing well. Absolutely. You joined late. Am I fading Ryan Fox tomorrow? I am, because he's a later starter. I don't like that. Only with like a Scotty, right? Somebody like Jordan Spieth, do I trust that? Not so much, right, with a guy like Ryan Fox. Do I think Minwoo played conservatively not to miss the cut? Probably not, no. I think he'd been out there. He just played his own sort of golf. He actually took on a lot more pins than I think he should have, because he went under his green regulation prop after starting beautifully on hitting greens. I took his under, so I'm glad that he went under. I'm glad that he took on the pin locations, but there were some pins that you just like couldn't hit the ball on the green if you went for it, and he did it anyway. So one of them was the par 4 in the back. I think it's 13. He went for that, ended up missing that green, and a few other mistakes as well. So I don't know. He's just inconsistent. He's going to get there eventually, but he's not there yet in terms of like an elite tier player. I don't know what the 6 of 6 percentage was, but I'll check right now for you. Let me see. Cut sweats, right? Let's see. So 6 of 6 percentage at the Charles Schwab is like 6%. So yeah, I have, what is it? 16%, 6 of 6 percentage. I'm over double the field. That's sick. That's actually better than I thought it was. But yeah, it's like 5.5, 6%, depending on what contest you're in. Cash 2 days around Prize Picks using my insight and recommendations. There you go. Good stuff. Let's keep it going for round 3, huh? Paul said, have a top 200 lineup with Sheln 1% and Tway 1.8%. Safe to assume the combo is very unique. Absolutely. Yes. That combo will be owned maybe a handful of times in that sort of GPP. Good luck this weekend. Thank you, Jordan. Where do I watch PGA? Where can you watch? Will this better your DFS game? I watched it on ESPN Plus for the early coverage, and then I watched the main coverage late. And normally I'll have either a computer to the side, maybe my phone to the side, watching some of the hole by hole stuff that they do on ESPN, because you can have the main broadcast on, right? You can have some of the hole stuff on the side, and really get to see a lot more golf. So I watch a lot of different things on there, that's for sure. So, okay, let's talk about some of these value plays, and I'll give you an idea of some of the early starters I'm considering. So we mentioned Hoagie, we mentioned Siwoo. Just for the record, they're both like 10% or lower ownership, and players that are going off early that can be aggressive. So really just checking a lot of the boxes I'm looking for. And down here a little bit lower, Thomas Dietrich was coming into the week a little bit chalky, but now he's only at even par, so not somebody that's towards the top of the leaderboard by any means, and now being a little bit slept on, right? 12.2% projected ownership, and a player that I think has a lot of birdie or better upside. Reason for that, player that can get hot with that flat stick, and the iron play here this year has been a lot more consistent. It's why he's had a lot more top finishes. He's been out there in contention a few times over the last few months. So $8,500, he's the sort of player that I'll mix in. Justin Rose at $8,000, right? Past champion at this golf course. Another player that can go out there, get hot early, right? He's +1. So his tee time will be in the first like 2.5 hours out there. And he's 14% owned. So I have him getting some ownership, but that's not anything outrageous, right? Take him in 25% of your lineups, and you've got some decent leverage there. So that's the way I'm approaching taking him. Mark Hubbard at $7,700, another example of a player I'll take. Going off early, he's getting attention because people liked him heading into the week, right? He was a DFS darling out here for this golf tournament. You can't blame people, right? Fits the golf course, right? He really tears up shorter tracks, and the approach play is always going to be there for Mark Hubbard. So I like the ball striking aspect. I like the fact that he has the early tee time, and kind of like Justin Rose, right? Getting some attention, but still nothing outrageous. You take him in like 25% of your lineups, which I'm probably going to go like 30% on those two guys. But even if you went 25%, that would be enough to get leverage to the field. Moving on a little bit further than that, let me make sure. Yeah, we're looking at the right tab there. Doug Gim at $7,400. Another player that I like for some leverage out here round 3. Another player that just kind of fits this course, right? He tears up the shorter tracks. He's not all that long off the tee, but he can throw darts. He can get hot with the flat stick. So kind of fits that showdown mold that we're looking for. Another guy that is usually high owned out here in DFS and was out here for this week, a little bit higher owned than some of his peers. But because he's even par, right? Nothing flashy, right? Over the first 2 days, you get him at 11%, which, you know, is $7,400. He's probably a lot cheaper than he should be out here. And he's still only about 11% ownership. So once again, about a 25, maybe a 30%er out there in my exposure, and a player that I'm looking to get over the field on. I'm also taking Rio, another past champion that I'm getting over the field at 9.4%. I like the way that he's moving into round 3, right? Round 1 was very sketchy for him, right? I believe shot like 4 over par. Today, was able to get it to 2 under, and I had 4 birdies on the day, was very productive in that aspect. Had some irons out there, actually missed a lot of opportunities. It could have had a better round than he went out there and captured. So at $7,000, it has upside to actually improve on what we saw for round 2, and has the early tee time, right? He's +2, even coming in off a solid round. And he's one of the few players down low, right, that went low for round 2 and is starting early, right? It can try and like build on that. A lot of those guys down there, right, maybe shot, you know, even par, maybe shot like +1 in a lot of circumstances, maybe even like +2 for some of those guys. Those kind of guys have negative momentum, right? Rio has the exact opposite. So I think there's something to be said for that. Moving down into the 6K range, Adam Svensson at +1, another player that can throw darts, really good long iron player, but decent with the wedges. You've seen him play well at some of these shorter positional tracks. I'm thinking are some classic. I'm thinking, what is it over there? Sea Island, RBC Heritage Race, played well at those sort of tracks before too. So $6,600 is a high upside guy that's going off early. Also pretty much unowned, right? 2.7% projected ownership. I also take like a Nick Hardy, Peter Manotti that are going off early, high birdie percentage players that just have that weather edge going for them. And then at $6,100, right? Somebody mentioned playing Callum Tran for round 2, right? I obviously didn't get there myself, But out here for round 3, right, I'll go for the bounce back, right? To go out there, kind of rush off round 2, get back to what he was doing in round 1, because he's $6,100. He's going off early, and he has torn up positional tracks. Like John Deere Classic, which is another shorter venue, he's gone out there and gotten into contention before. Even like the PGA National course, where there's a lot of layups off the tee, right? Similar to the Colonial out here for this week. $6,100, like if he's torn up those kind of tracks, I feel like, maybe we get back to him, right? Just kind of hoping that he gets back to what he was doing there on Thursday. So that's an idea of some of the exposure that I'm getting to. Again, it's not necessarily just the plays that we went through, right? There are guys that I'm taking for my exposure. It's more just perspective out here for round 3. It's early starters, right? You saw me taking a lot of chasers, especially down low, right? There's no guys starting in the last 2 hours of tee times, right? That I just talked up. The only guys that fit that, right, are Scotty and Jordan, right? Players that I'm taking at the very top of the pricing, just some of the best talents out there in the field, the highest birdie percentage players in the field, right? Scotty's number 1 in the category, and Jordan Spieth's top 10, right? If you're going to do that, Tony Finau, right? He's top 20 in birdie percentage. Same thing with Morikawa, right? He's top 20 in birdie percentage. Outside of that, I know Tom Hoge he's top 10 in birdie percentage, and I think that's it. No one else in the field can say that. Outside of like those sort of players, like maybe don't take them, right, if they're starting later. So that would be my take for the weather, the strategy out there for DFS. And because you're taking those earlier starters, you're also going to get a lot of leverage, right? The highest owned player that we talked about here was Justin Rose, outside of our top end guys, right, at 13.8%, right? Gim was like 11%, like even Griot at 9%, where he's not low owned, but no one was egregiously chalky, right? That was going off early, right? Some of those guys are still going to get played because sharps out here like us know about a weather edge, but they're not going to be the highest owned options out there for your round 3 GPPs. So that would be my take on tomorrow. Just lean into the weather and embrace a little bit of a bounce back, right? Know that these golfers, right, can bounce back, go out there and shine for an 18-hole sample, and even some of the most slapdick of golfers out there are capable of doing so. I was eyeing him up. So he's $8,700, even par. So early enough tee time for me. I'm not playing him, but I think he's a decent enough play. He was one of the last few guys that I couldn't get to. Finally got a 6 of 6 through and a decent 5 of 6. There you go. And he only had 4 lineups. So obviously, right, a limited sample. So that's good stuff there. Billy Horseshit. I do not like him. I think that's a good way to put it, Manny, huh? Billy Horseshit out there. For a long time, probably for like 3-4 months, that was the case. He's a little bit better these days, though. Where's the prize picks board? I have no idea. A lot of times, Dave, it'll come out like an hour and a half after the round ends. So that's like a half an hour, maybe an hour from now. So we'll catch it towards the end of this live stream. Underdog probably has theirs up already. I haven't checked quite yet. So let's build a lineup together. Let's go over to Draftkings, get that done. I want to see if the PGA Tour has posted pin locations yet, which they have. So I want to check in on this. I'm assuming that they're going to be easy pins again, because this golf course is super firm. It's going to be windy in the afternoon, and it looks generally pretty easy. A lot of back pins, which you kind of have to have with firm pins. You can't have a bunch of front pins unless it's a short hole, right? Unless you're hitting wedge, it's impossible to hit it close if it's a front pin. And let's go through these. So hole 1's a par 5. It's in the back. So a harder pin than days 1 and 2. Hole 2 is borderline drivable, and it's up towards the front. So I think that one's pretty accessible. Let's see. A lot of back pins, 5's pretty much towards the center. Even 4 is, and that's a longer par 4. 7's a difficult hole, and that's a pretty wide open pin. Same thing with 8. 11's a little bit tricky. 12, even 13, a little bit tricky themselves. So I say this back 9 looks a little bit devilish. Back 9 looks tucked, but the front 9 looks set up just like days 1 and 2. So I think it's almost going to be a tale of two halves, where these front 9 pins like look eerily similar to Thursday, Friday. The back 9, though, looks like they're tightening the screws a little bit. And because they're going off of two sums off of hole number 1, I kind of like what they're doing here, right? They're going to give you some scoring early. We're not going through the pin locations, slopes and whatnot out here on live stream quite yet. But if we did, I would imagine that these front pin locations, these front 9 pin locations are probably in some pretty favorable spots. So we'll probably do that at some point tonight so I can go through and get an idea. But yeah, those pins kind of just interesting there. It's going to get tough late. I'll say that much, especially like this, late starters that are going off in these high winds. That is going to be really tough. Alrighty. So let's build a lineup together. I'll give you an idea of my thought process. I'm going out there and building a lineup. And for me, it's about just making sure I don't have too much chalk together. So if I'm starting with the Scotty, it kind of changes up your lineup construction right off the bat, puts you down to only about 7,400 remaining for your last 5 spots. So if you're going to try and take a double spend up like, Scheffler then Jordan, it's going to be next to impossible to pull it off. So if you're going to be super aggressive about it, I guess you could pull it off with a bunch of 6K guys. But if I'm taking Scotty, I'm probably dropping down a little bit further and maybe taking somebody like a Dietrich, right, as my second man in. Down here in this 8K top end of the 7s, this is where a Hubbard, right, is probably one of my top options, one of my first clicks down there in that range. Down towards the bottom end of the 7s, I'd probably be looking at taking even Patrick Rogers. I know somebody mentioned him before. Let's just throw him in there for the sake of this lineup. We can go a little bit more expensive, take Doug Gim, and then 6,300, right? You can round out this lineup if you wanted to. If you wanted to be a little bit more balanced about it, which is probably the prudent move here, perhaps you go up to a Ricky, right, at $7,300. No matter who we take here to round out our lineup, we're going to be totally fine, right? We don't have too much mega chalk here. I guess there's not a lot of guys I'm realizing here that are priced here from like $68 to $7,100. I guess you could throw like Kevin Ewan, Grillo. I know we mentioned him before. Any of these sort of players, any sort of combination is going to work because outside of Scotty Scheffler, who I have at about 30% ownership, the highest owned player here is Mark Hubbard at like 12%, right? Like Dietrich is like 12 to 15%. Rogers, Grillo are both sub 5%. Sub 10% owned, right? Out there with those two players. If the last guy in here is anyone that's sub 10%, this lineup is going to be unique. It's going to have plenty of leverage out there in GPPs, and you're not going to have to worry about it all that much. So that's why I said that up top, right, I might have like one guy that I'm playing that's starting later, right? That'll be higher owned. That's probably just a better player. But a majority of my lineups and a majority of my exposure are going to be those early starters that I'm taking at lower ownership that I'm getting a bunch of leverage to the field on. So that's my take out there for my round 3 showdown. It's pretty straightforward. For cash, I'd probably only play early starters. The only exception I would take to that would be Scotty Scheffler, right? I would not play Jordan Spieth in your cash lineups. The only only late starter, I should say, that I would take out there in my lineups would be Scotty Scheffler. So it'd be all early guys for me. In fact, I think a $13,000 Scheffler would be kind of tough to pull off in something that's like a cash format. So I might go a little bit more balanced. So if I was doing that, maybe perhaps you start with like a Hoagie Bazane, like perhaps even both of those guys. You can go a little bit cheaper than that. Throw in a Rose. I really like Rose out here. Mid 8K range. You should probably pepper somebody here like a Horschel if you wanted to. In my cash lineup, it'd be a lot of just safe players, just a lot of guys that I think are decent values at their price and that are earlier starters. So I know we played Grillo in one of our other spots. So let's throw Lee Hodges in there. And then your last spot, right, you round it off with your favorite guy. That's going off early. So that's how I would handle a cash lineup. GPP lineup, right, more so worried about upside, right, that cash lineup. I was more so just looking for guys that projected well at their price. So there's a little bit of a different mindset that's needed for the contest that you're entering. But overall, right, the earlier starters should be playing on a much calmer golf course. And just to confirm that, let's refresh this, take a look at what we're dealing with. You'll see that it updated here 12 minutes ago, and it's still favoring the morning wave. It's maybe not completely calm the entire morning. You can see for like maybe an hour, right, it kicks up a little bit. But for the most part, right, it's still really calm compared to the afternoon. The afternoon wave, right, still going to be much more difficult than the morning wave. And it's not just the winds, right? It's also the fact that this course is going to get firmer as the day goes on. It's not going to be that same dreary overcast that we had out here for Friday. It's a lot more sunny, it looks like, especially some of the local weather forecasts are calling for it to be pretty sunny the entire day here. And these random winds that just popped up. By the way, the last forecast did not have this wind here at like 8, 9 a.m. This might go away on the next forecast. Who knows, right? Obviously, keep an eye on this forecast, especially if you're watching this after the fact. But if this morning wave still has lower winds than the afternoon, then fire away on all that strategy we talked about. Now, if you check this in 5 hours or check this tomorrow morning, right, and the morning wave has the same kind of winds as the afternoon, then maybe you play some guys that are going off later. So just have an open mind, right? Be flexible about your exposure. Today, the weather kind of flipped and the forecast did not account for that. But if you do see that change, right, like just account for that in your lineup. So just want to throw that little bit of a disclaimer out there. And you can see, right, it's already changed a little bit from the look that we had a little bit earlier, which is kind of wild. It's only been like 40 minutes and it changed already. Where we at? No, you're good. No need to apologize, my man. Or you said same guy's a tool? Yeah. Kind of new. Could you explain what a pin is? So pin is just where the hole is, right? So a pin location is where the flag is. A pin is the thing that's holding the flag out there on golf. So pin location is where that's going to be. Would love to tail my Underdog or Prize picks first time viewer. Yeah, we're going to talk some Underdog and Prize Picks later. So you'll definitely be able to do so, Jewel. Just hold on for probably about 5 minutes. I think we're done for DFS here in just like a minute here. Just going over any last second questions for DFS. If you were just here for DFS, smash that like button before you guys hop on out of here. Because we're going to be talking props here, Joel. I just realized like right now, by the way. So hang on right now. But yeah, if you're just here for DFS, guys, make sure to smash the like button on the way here out of here. Just the only thing I ask from you guys here, and subscribe so you guys can stop by out here for our round 4 live stream. We'll be going live just after play ends because we don't have to deal with the cut line. We'll probably be live a little bit closer to when play actually ends. So keep an eye out to my Twitter for when we're going live. But like I said, still plenty to talk about here on the prop side. And we're going to talk through some matchups over there on Hard Rock Bet too. So if you're looking at like 3 balls, that sort of stuff, we're going to spend a little bit more time on this live stream on that because it's Friday, right? We have some time out here. Might as well. I don't have to get to hanging at the bar too quick. We can hang out a little bit before, huh? There's gonna be plenty of time for that. Let's just say that. Bart says, will there be an edge for going off first on the back 9 or the other way? There's no sort of edge for that because everyone is going off of hole number 1. So we might want to look at that, right? If they were going off of both tees, but they're going off in twosomes, all off of hole 1. So not a thing out here for round 3. Straka birdied the last 2 holes, and Cootie had an epic birdie streak. So that's out there for your lineup today. That's pretty sweet. That's a good way to get some points, huh? And yeah, that Straka birdie helped me for props. So that was pretty sweet. Yeah, so yeah, the front versus back 9 thing doesn't matter. Kevin Yu is one of the guys you always play. You like the flag. There you go. He's Chinese Taipei, right? I think him and CT Pan are from the same place. Jordan says Smotherman is a Dallas guy. Yeah, I'm playing Smotherman today. He's a high upside pin seeker. So that's what I like about Smotherman. I used to call him Smother Me in Money because of how much money he would win me out there in showdown slates. Phil says they do disclose where it is. So I'll show you out here. So they do disclose where the pin locations are. It's where that dot is. So you see that little black dot that they have on the sheet. So hole number 1's up here in the top left. This black dot is where the hole is going to be for hole number 1. So they do that, and that's on that sheet. Absolutely, Joel. Make sure to subscribe. Appreciate that, my man. Chris says Pearson Cootie getting up to T2 to T5 for the next 36. So you're hoping that he holds on there. Yeah, he's a stud. I've heard a lot of good things about him. His brother too, right? Parker Cootie. is the even more impressive one stat wise. So yeah, the fact that Pearson played so well over the first 2 days is mighty fine impressive for the both of them. Looking forward to the Hard Rock stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, me too. It's been a minute, huh? So let's do the first prop stuff over here on DraftKings. Sorry, not DraftKings. Prize Picks and Underdog and all of that. Once again, if you were just here for DFS, I appreciate you guys as well. Just smash the like button on the way out of here, and best of luck with those lineups. Let's get it. That weather edge should be good for us. Let's just build some lineups with some leverage, and it's try and take down a GPP or two. It doesn't have to be rocket science, right? Just take mostly early starters, and then I think you should have a decent day, right? Especially if you're getting some leverage. So in terms of the prop averages out here for round 2, this will be useful when we're looking at these boards. The stroke average was about 0.65 over, so 70.65. Birdie average was higher than round 1, which I don't want to say I called, but I mentioned the possibility, right, of this birdie average being closer to 3, and it was 2.95. So that was super helpful for a lot of our props. But I wasn't really expecting that, right? I thought it was probably going to be closer to 2.75, is I believe what I quoted on stream yesterday. This closer to 3 average was an unexpected thing that I love to see. It was a little bonus, unexpected bonus. The bogey average was still pretty much as high as round 1, right? 3.28. Fairway average went down to 7.82, and your green average went down to 10.1 per round. So it was a difficult day. Right? Round 1 was pretty difficult as well. But now that we have a lot of the, shitty players kicked out of here, right? The guys that are just, the mules out there, your Michael Blocks of the world, right, out of the stat averages, I think you're going to see the scoring average improve. I think with moving day pins, you're going to see the scoring average improve. I think the early starters with low wins are going to improve the scoring average. Right, that sub 10 miles an hour sustained, right? That's going to make a big difference. These pin locations, as I mentioned, I think you're going to see a birdie average over 3 for the field, bogey average probably closer to 3 per round, and perhaps even a slightly under par scoring average, especially for the morning wave, which is kind of crazy for this golf course, especially for it playing this firm. But I think at worst, it's going to play just slightly over par. So if I had to put an actual projection on it, I'd put it at like plus 0.1. That would be like my official projection in terms of score. But the birdie average, I think, definitely improves. I think the bogey average at worst stays at like this 3.2 range. If not, gets closer to that 3 per round. So we'll have to see about that. I think the fairways greens are going to stay pretty consistent. And maybe the fairways goes closer to 8. Maybe the greens, right, fluctuates like 0.1, 0.2 in either direction. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement out there in those last 2 categories. So that's what we saw from round 2, right? Obviously, the round 1 stats you can find over there on the Patreon page, just like all the stuff that we had for DFS, right? So I meant to mention it before. For all your needs out there for the PGA DFS side, right? Make sure to check out my Patreon page. That's where you can find all my projections that we used throughout this video. And of course, where I have my prop slips that we're going to go through here in just a few minutes. So let me see if they have boards posted on some of these other sites. And we have some stuff with my partner Ship It Nation to talk about later. So they're the sponsor of this live stream. We're gonna have a segment there in just a little bit talking about them. But yeah, I wanted to shout out the Patreon page out there as well. So nothing on Prize Picks. That sucks. We do have a full board on Underdog, it looks like. And of course, we can bring up the Pick 6 stuff too. So let me do that here. So yeah, Pick 6, we do have a board posted. And it looks like a complete board. So the one thing I'll say, their product definitely, has some things that needs ironed out, but they're at least very quick with posting boards. That's good. Prompt with it is probably a better word. I don't know if it's a quick, but they're prompt. So let's take a look at the strokes lines. 70.5 for your slappies. That's that feels like that makes sense. I actually agree with that. Your mid-tier at 69.5. I think I agree with that. Wow, this is the sharpest Pick 6 board I've ever seen. Normally, they're egregiously off with a lot of their projections. And even this birdie board, like they don't have a lot of like your pure slapdick players on here at 3.5 birdies. It's like respectable players, maybe outside of like a Zach Johnson, right? Like he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb there. But outside of like him, a lot of guys that are just like mid-tier to even like above average players in the field posted at 3.5 birdies, which is I think a very sharp projection. out there with these moving day pins. So this pick six board, I think, is a lot sharper than what they had for the first 2 days. If you just made slips that faded out here for yesterday, you did it for today's action, right? You would have went out there and just printed money. I think the slips that we gave, right, went like, I think it was like 2 of 3 and like 2 out of 4 out there for round 2. But in general, like, you know, you're going to have some random guys that spike off. If you just fade the board when it's that kind of value, like pretty much everyone that's on there, you would have made a crap ton of money. So I don't think that's the case out here for this kind of slate, right? This is a much more fair board, at least when it comes to the strokes lines. Birdie lines too, I think are pretty sharp out there. Let's take a look at these bogeys. So 2.5 for mid-tier guys, maybe like above average guys, right? With Spieth, Kim, and Bradley. And then they have more calm at 1.5. That feels like that could be an over spot. But once again, this board, I think there's still spots that we can find, right? I mean, obviously, I think there's going to be spots that we can find as value, but it's not as clear cut as we had for the last 2 days. So that's at least interesting to note. I want to bring up DraftKings. I always mean to do this beforehand and then I forget. So let me bring up the DraftKings odds, get those up so we can compare them, and then do the same thing with some of the other prop sites. So DraftKings doesn't have them all published quite yet. So let's see if FanDuel has been a little bit quicker to the draw, hopefully. And if not, if Caesars has gotten the job done. So FanDuel has, and hopefully Caesars can measure up as well. Let's see. So Caesars, Charles Schwab. Let me just share my screen here. Don't have to just make it my face. You guys can see what we're doing. So we brought whole scores up over here on Caesars. And I believe on FanDuel we have them posted as well. So I just want to scroll through these. I haven't even looked at the Underdog board yet, which is going to be the first site that we really deep dive here. We're going to circle back to pick 6. I'll probably give you guys a slip over there. But before we even look at the Underdog board, I want to know what we're dealing with the sportsbook odds. I want to know which way they're leaning, and I want to know where they have this board. So Webb at like 70 strokes. He's juiced under, right? They're at 70.5. Sanjay is pretty much even money at 69.5, which honestly, I think I'd want to bet is under at 69.5. Like same thing with Tom Hoagie, and he's also pretty close to even money. Somebody like Ricky is juiced pretty heavily under 70.5. I agree with that. Let's see. Colin is down at 68.5, but he is juiced over, which I guess I understand that. But what is his line over here in Underdog? Now I'm just curious. Let's see. He's probably at that same number? Yeah, 68.5. I probably don't want to be looking for fades out here. Frankly, with these moving day pins, I kind of like the idea of taking some overs on birdies, especially on players that will take aim at these pins. So I think Siwoo Kim come to mind. I think even Jordan Spieth that's going off a little bit later. But the added benefit of taking players that are early starters is we should be able to get them at better lines, right? If they've been kind of struggling over the first few days, maybe we get them at a slightly better projection than we probably should. So let me see. So 3.5 for Minwoo. Like I don't even hate the idea of that. I mentioned Siwoo being a pin seeker before. Like this is just me brainstorming, by the way. This doesn't mean that we're going to bet these specific props. Sanjay's a later starter though, right? So I kind of want to make it. So even Minwoo, he's got a little bit of a later tee time. I want it to be guys that are going to be playing in the ideal conditions. So Tom Hoagie came through for us today. Maybe we go back to the well. Let's see. So these two are probably our best options for like early tee times. So we could go Justin Rose. I don't hate the idea of that. Hoagie is a 10 a.m., so he's not really like a true AM tee time, or he's going off a little bit later than I would hope for. So maybe we go that direction instead. Let me see. Let me see if there's anyone else that's like at 8:39. I don't think there is, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of guys around 10, like Hoagie, like a Ricky Fowler, for example. So I'll keep Hoagie in the shopping cart at least right now. I kind of wish that he had this 9 a.m. tee time out here like Justin Rose, but I'm going to see if they have anything to compare to in terms of odds. So over here on FanDuel, sometimes they have birdie props posted, which I'm sure they'll have them up at some point, but they don't have them posted quite yet. But over here on the Caesars side, they usually post them too. So let's see if they have them up. So Keegan juiced under birdies. Okay, I disagree with that, but I guess it's good to look at this. They have pretty much everyone juiced under at 3.5, except for a Tony Finau. They have a Morikawa juiced over at 3.5, and then what do they have Jordan Spieth at? I would imagine probably 3.5, and then even money out there for Jordan Spieth. Caesars expects this to be extremely difficult, I guess. I don't agree with that at all. I think you had a lot of slappies out there in the field right there, end up getting cut. I think that the pin locations are going to be pretty soft on that front nine. I think even the back ones, even if they're tucked a little bit, right, are probably going to be in some bowls because just how they do it right out there on moving day. I think a birdie average around 3 per round, if not even slightly higher, can be expected. So the sportsbook odds, at least on Caesars, aren't going to agree with it. But let's see what they have for strokes. I think their strokes are more reasonable. Like, look at this. They have guys like Keegan Bradley under par, but they're not as bullish over here on the birdie side, which kind of baffles me. Like, even Brian Harmon is at 69.5. Like, I don't really get the pricing from Caesars. Let's just say that much, right? Like, their strokes lines, they feel pretty appropriate, but they're low, right? They're all well under par. Guys juiced under, right, at 69.5. But their birdie lines, right, are juiced way under at 3.5. I don't quite get that, right? The bogey average is over 3 per round. So something's not really adding up right there. Let's see. So let me bring up the round score again over here. I wanted to just look at, I guess, the board now. So let's see what we're working with. So these three were sticking out. There could be some unders on strokes now that I'm looking at this board that are plus EV. So let me look at Tom Kim. Let's control F some of these. Hopefully I don't unplug my mic. If I do, guys, just a PSA. If you guys are watching live right now, I'll fix it. Just let me know down in live chat. I'll catch it and fix it. It might be like, I don't know how long till I catch it, but let's see what we do here. I'll do my best not to. So Tom Kim is over, actually, is juiced minus 140 over. I've got to say, guys, especially if you can find like an early starter, like I know Tom Kim doesn't fit that. I disagree with this. So let me look at the Siwoo Kim line. So let's look at somebody that maybe fits this a little bit. Oh my God. Siwoo at 69.5. He's even money. What is his projection over here in Underdog? He's at 69 strokes, so even lower. Yikes. And then they posted a board on Prize Picks finally. So let's compare that. It's the first time that I think I've seen boards that are actually priced well. It's a Christmas miracle, actually. Normally we have at least one board that I think is like mega mispriced. Not really the case out here, at least so far. So I would say the pricing looks almost copy and paste from what we had at Underdog. Maybe a few 0.5 differences across the two different sites, but nothing that is like one stroke off or like 1.5 stroke difference. So this is kind of hard to find a lead. Like they've got a pretty good read on this golf course. I think everyone does at this stage. And if I take a look at these birdie lines, I only just took like a quick little glance there. They have guys down here at 3 that I really like for overs. So I'm kind of glad that we waited before taking these sort of props because Tom Hoagie's at 3 over here. And they even have guys down here at the 2.5 birdie mark. So let me see who we're working with. So I think Ricky's even in play over there at 3. So I'm looking for earlier starters, players that are just aggressive, high birdie percentage players. So we could go Siwoo, but he's at 3.5. So they do have him there with the 0.5. Or we go Ricky, who goes off a little bit later, but does have the push equity there at 3. That's... Oof. I like Siwoo, I have to say. I think he's going to be aggressive. I think he's going to play well. Do the shots gain metrics back that up? Let's see. I know he's way back here. So round 2, he lost on approach, so did not have a good day with the irons. That's concerning. But did everything else decently, right? Gained around the green, gained off the tee, was about neutral with the flat stick, which could be better, but it could be a whole lot worse. The irons have to come back around. So I don't know. Maybe Sibu gets the boot here, right? Especially because he has that 0.5. The one prop that I feel like we're definitely going to play here, though, is definitely this Tom Hoagie over on birdies. Maybe we can find an under on strokes that makes a little bit more sense. So rather than looking for like a high upside player, let's try and find somebody that can keep it a little bit cleaner. And ideally, I want this to be a morning starter too. But I am a little bit more willing to make this a later starter, right? Especially if they're at like a 69.5 projection. So let's see what we have. So Tom Kim would be the kind of later starter that I'd consider. Sunjay M2 just to shoot under par. I'd consider two with moving day pins. Speaking of, I think Sunjay would be decent odds, right? If we compare him over here on the FanDuel side. So let me see if I can find Sunjay on here. I believe he was 69.5, and I believe he was slightly juiced under, if memory serves me correctly. But let's just see. Let's just search it. So he was actually juiced a little bit over. I vehemently disagree with the odds, I suppose. Over here on the FanDuel side, right? Wasn't he point? He's at that same projection too. That feels like a decent lean to me. 69.5, or he's in form. I'm just going to ask him to shoot under par in this kind of golf course. I think the scoring average is going to be pretty damn close to even par, right? Especially for like the morning guys. So that's not the case with Sunjay, right? He's in one of the last few groups out. 145, actually, he is in the last group out, out there for Saturday. That's the only thing keeping me from playing it at this point. So the main prop I like, that Hoagie prop, we're for sure going to get to. I'm going to keep this in on the shopping cart over there. There's not even any plus EV props posted. So what they did is, I guess they waited for our FanDuel to post. They went, looked at some of the lines, right? Kind of cross-referenced them, right? Made sure that there wasn't any glaring misprice. This Keegan Bradley prop, I guess, could be worth a few looks. Let me see what he's at over here. He's probably at 69.5, right? Yeah, he's at that number, but he's juiced over. So I guess if we're trying to be prudent about value, if we're looking for a later starter, like I throw him in that same camp as a Sunjay, as like a guy later on that I'll look to shoot under par. I guess the added benefit with Keegan Bradley would be that, we have that push at even par. If we take a look at the shots gained metrics, he's going off in the last group, or was it third to last group out here at -6. He gained a bunch of strokes with the flat stick, right? 3 strokes putting. Round 1, though, it was much more the ball striking that got it done. So it's kind of like, a tale of 2 different rounds out there for Keegan. So you never really know what you're going to get, but I don't feel like that's a bad stat profile. So this is feeling like a pretty decent spot. And I want to check up on Tom Hoagie too. I know Hoagie didn't play amazing, but he also didn't play poorly. And speaking of, where the hell is Tom Hoagie? Let's just search for him. So he gained a bunch around the green. He lost with the irons. I believe that. From the eye test, I can tell you that he did not look sharp with the irons today, but he did look good off the tee. Can confirm that with the eye test. And then the putter was kind of hit or miss. Can't do that again. So one thing is for sure, Tom Hoagie can't rely on the around the green like he did today, right? He chipped in. That's why it's 1.88 shots around the green for one of his birdies that he made. He's going to have to find a way to get better with the irons. But if we go to round 1, right, I'll show you. He wasn't all that bad in round 1. Right? He gained off the tee again, right? But he was a gainer out there with that approach play. I think he's a decent option. So I'm going to mix him in because he's that early tee time. And then with Keegan Bradley, right, going off a little bit later, he's the sort of player that I'll take for an under, just to go out there and shoot one under par, right? He's playing some solid golf, or he fits this kind of golf course. Colonial, right, sets up well for his game. Tom Hoagie, by the way, if you weren't here for the live stream yesterday, right, he was a prop that we hit out here on the live stream, right, combined out there with the Michael Block fade. He's number 4 birdie maker on the PGA Tour. He's a top 5 guy in the category. So if there's anyone you're going to take for an over, right, it's that sort of guy. So I'll take him for the over at 3, which I think will be around the field average for birdies. It was the same idea for the live stream yesterday, right? They had him at the expected field average, and then he went out there and exceeded it, right? Same thing today, right? They have him at the field average. I'm going to take him to go out there and go over that number. So Keegan Bradley, more so not of a weather play, right? Obviously going to be playing when conditions are a little bit worse, but hopefully he can handle that. He's a experienced veteran, probably a little bit more, I would say, just equipped to go out there and handle that, but we'll see how it works out. Where we at? Manny is wilding out in the chat. Sorry to be late. Got a bounce back guy for tomorrow, so I'll give you one. So this is for DFS, of course. If I was looking for a bounce back candidate, Siwoo Kim would be the guy. I think Siwoo Kim sets up well for a little bit of a bounce back. He has to be aggressive because he's so far back, and he's got the early tee time to boot. Also, low ownership out there for GBP. So Siwoo Kim for me. What a drastic difference in the Belgium DP. I have no idea what you're saying, Chris. You're just splatting random shit. Okay. So we'll ignore your comments. Gotcha, dude. Jimmy says, you greatly appreciate the content. Best of luck. Appreciate you, Jimmy. Best of luck out there for tomorrow. SH Kim for the win. Okay. He's playing well this week, that's for sure. Prize picks dropping the board right now. That was a good heads up. Appreciate that, man. Early tee times, love Hodges, Berger, and McNeely. I'm with you on 2 of the 3 in my player pool. Surprisingly enough, Daniel Berger's the only one I'm not certain if I'm playing or not. So love the early starters, though, dude. That's definitely what I would be doing. And you're leaning into the right thing, right? The edge is out there with the weather, and those are 3 guys that fit that. Rio's going off. He won last year. 100% agree with you. Justin Rose, too, right? Won at Colonial before. Why not take a shot on him going off early? I'm with you on those 2 guys. You're liking Berger, too? I think it's a good shout. Ignoring his comments down there. That guy's just yapping in chat. Barry says, what's going on? It's take time. Let's go. Absolutely. So we already talked about a slip over here in prize picks. Let's head over here to Underdog. So I think the Underdog board, in my opinion, is priced pretty fairly, but there's going to be some spots that we can find value. I kind of wish they had the green board up. I kind of wish we had fairways to compare to, because a lot of times those are some of the better props that they have posted. So I guess they're posting some top 10 stuff, which I usually ignore because the multipliers on them are normally a little bit of a scam compared to what you have for odds. But it looks like we have bogey props posted, which I'm not sure if we have posted before. So 1.5 for Scotty, 2 for some of your like mid to maybe like above average players. So if we can find a guy at 2 that's a little bit erratic, I don't hate the idea of that. And then your later starters, I mean, they're going to be playing in some nasty weather conditions. So just to find some potential fades, let's see. Brian Harmon, 2.5, but he's a good bogey avoider. Let's find a late inexperienced. We're gonna take the Sanjay out of here for now, just for now. Tony Finau, 68.5. What is he on prize picks? Prize picks, they have him at 69. If we check his odds, I keep checking DraftKings. They don't even have him up there. Let's check his odds over here on the FanDuel side. So he's minus 125 towards the under, which I tend to agree with, but that's an entire stroke higher than what they have him over here on Underdog. I don't necessarily want to fade Tony Finau at that number, though. So that's probably just a stay away spot for me. So I would say that I disagree with the sportsbook odds, which happens from time to time. So that's probably just a stay away spot. I wouldn't want to take the, under on that sort of prop. That's for sure, right? If it's that much against the odds, right? It's an entire stroke lower, but I wouldn't necessarily fade it either. Just because it's elite tier player moving day. I think conditions, they might be a little bit windy later, but you still saw around a 0.6 over bar scoring average today, right? With some pretty windy conditions, without all the slappies that missed the cut. I think it's going to improve, right? I think moving day pins are going to make that improve too. So yeah, I'm not looking at fades. I'm trying to find some guys we can support. I don't hate the idea of Minwoo. What is he over here? He's at the same sort of number. What about Ricky? He's probably 70, right? Over here in prize picks, Ricky Fowler. Where are you at? BDR, where are you at? He might not have a line. I'm just blind. He's at 69.5. Same line. Let's just do this. Let's just type it in. It's 10 times more efficient. Let's not dick around. Sepp is 69.5. Same line on both sites. We could fade Buckley over here on FanDuel, the site that actually has the lines posted. Do they have Buckley posted? Well, if I could spell it right, we could check. Nope, nothing for Buckley. Maybe they do on Caesars. No, fat chance they don't have him posted. But they do have Davis Riley posted, right? You can see him down here at 71 and a half. He's juiced under, right? So he should probably be at like 71 strokes. We're going to fade Hayden Buckley. I feel like that's a spot that I'll definitely take. I actually like this over on bogeys more than what we have for that over on strokes. So I'm going to take this over on Hayden Buckley bogeys, and I ideally want to find a supportive play to take now, right? So somebody going off early, so he's got the late tee time, right? The nastier winds to kind of deal with. I want to take an earlier starter now that we can take for a supportive play, right? So I was looking at some of the overs on birdies before. I think an under on strokes would make more sense. We just have to try and find somebody that's decent value. So unfortunately, a lot of these strokes lines are probably 0.5 lower than what they should be. Sanjay kind of stuck out before, but it's not the best compared to the sportsbook odds. If we were going to find something else, I guess we could take an over on birdies. Now, we'd have to find the right sort of player. So if they have anyone at 3, let me see. I think it was a lot of 3.5s. Yeah, it's a lot of 3.5s over here on Underdog. Unfortunately, we might have to go 2 fades and the lower payout. So, I was trying to find a supportive stance play, right, to make this payout, juiced up a little bit, but the board isn't really conducive towards doing so. So if we're going to go with the fade, which is probably the easier side to find value on, at least on this board, right? This board it's definitely priced a little bit tighter. Like we could go Davis Riley, right? We could go like both of the guys that are going off late, that have the late tee time, that are a little bit inexperienced, right? A little bit lower tier players, right? Guys that aren't out there in the top 30 of the FedEx Cup. Don't hate that. They have them at 2.5 as well. Yeah, this is 100% the spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Hayden Buckley over on bogey. Same thing with Davis Riley. 2 pretty erratic drivers, 2 players that'll be under pressure, right? Being up there in the last group, playing in the hardest conditions when winds are going to be kicking up. And I think the bogey average is still going to be about 3, maybe slightly over 3 out there for round 3. And in the windier conditions, it's going to be a little bit higher than that, right? Out there in the afternoon. So these sort of players, right, even if they have about an average day, right, are going to go over this 2.5 line. And I think should be at 3 bogeys, if not even 3.5 out there in terms of a projection. So those are like the 2 most obvious pieces of value that I could find over there in Underdog. On Prize Picks, let me see what they have for their strokes lines. Now I'm curious, where did they have them? Because I'm sure they have one of the 2 posted, right? If not, that's kind of disappointing. So they had, Riley's at 71, right? So he's a stroke higher. I think the bogey line is the best line that we can get. And yeah, look at this. Buckley's at 71 too. So whether you want to fade their strokes line or right the bogey line that I took, I think that both of those make a lot of sense. You're confusing me, Chris. The DP World Tour in Belgium, yeah, I was seeing something from them over there in Japan at some point about like having some bunker and water. So their marketing team's not very good about spreading the news on that. That's for sure. Over 70.5 strokes for Zach Johnson. Yeah, is that on Prize Picks? I think that's a decent look. Yeah, I agree with you there. Where's he at? So 70.5, yeah, over here in Prize Picks. Let me see if they have any odds. My guess is that they don't have odds posted for him, but I guess you never know. They don't over there on FanDuel, and I'm assuming they don't over here. Yeah, they don't over there on the Caesar side either. So maybe when we get them posted over here on DraftKings, which is usually a little bit more thorough with the stuff that they're posting, we can get those to compare to. But yeah, I'd be leaning on the over for Zach Johnson, but I guess I kind of prefer, right, the fades on guys that are going off really late, right? Like he's got an 11:40 tee time. I don't know if it's late enough for me to go out there and fade. So Those two props that we took, right, are the ones that I'm going to stick with for right now. We've got a few more categories posted. So we have greens up now, fairways. So we'll go through those as well. And let me refresh over here in Underdog too, because they may be posting some stuff there too. So let's see. So nothing fairways or greens posted there yet, but we'll see if we get that. And my apologies, Chris. I'm not going to ignore your comments. You're good. I guess I was confused by your comment. It just wasn't worded very well. But yeah, you got me, and I was just, I'm done trying. Appreciate you, Brian. You said gave me a shout out on the Discord. I appreciate that too, man. Always right, trying to make me look good. I appreciate that, Brian. Appreciate the shout for that, and the best of luck out there for your Saturday stuff. Let's see. Rose under 69.5. So he's at that number over on Underdog. Early tee time, right? So I was looking at him for birdies, right? I mentioned him for that prop before. Did I miss his odds? Like I thought he's even money, right? So honestly, he's like slightly juiced towards the over. Yeah, I disagree with that, right? Like I think he's a good under spot out there in actuality. I guess I wish that we got a slightly better line, right? That kind of was better value compared to the sportsbook stuff. But I agree with that. Yeah, I think he's going to shoot under par. Sibu versus Minwoo for the birdie or better matchup. That's tough for me, but Sibu is going off earlier than Minwoo. So Minwoo has the later tee time, but Sibu has the early start. I would favor Sibu there over Minwoo Lee just because of the tee time, but both are pretty close in terms of talent level. That's for sure. That's a good matchup on paper, but I think the tee time probably splits that one. So just to refresh our mind here, green average was 10.1 per round. So they've got some guys at like 10.5. Your guys like Riley, Gary Woodland down there. So at 11.5, if we could find a less than accurate player, less than like average player when it comes to accuracy, we could probably find a fade or two. So Minwoo kind of sticks out for that. He's been a little bit better with that this week, so maybe we avoid that. Yeah, fairway average went down for round 2. So round 3 is probably going to stay lower, right, because of conditions getting firmer. So at 9 fairways, you'd have to think there's some fade value here. So at 9.5 for Keegan, I'd probably be looking to fade that, if I'm being honest. Even though we took his under on strokes, so like just 9.5 fairways is really high. And in fact, if we go over here to the Caesars board, they normally have fairway stuff posted. We can compare, and I'm very curious. So look at this. They have Keegan at 8.5, so he's one lower, and he's minus 170 juice. Wow. Okay, so let's find a few more. Minwoo Lee, do they have him posted? They don't, but I'd imagine that he'd be at that same kind of projection. 8.5 would probably juiced away under. Who else can we take? So we're going to take 3 guys here in the same category. Adam Scott, under at 9. Let's see. That would pay 4.25x. Let's do that. All right. So I took the 3 unders. I took the slightly lower payout just because I like the value on these 3 lines. I think they're going to bump at some stage, right? Keegan's a whole fairway lower over there on the other side, right? And juiced under. Minwoo is just as inaccurate, right? If not even more inaccurate, right, than Keegan. And then Adam Scott is ranked outside the top 100 in driving accuracy most years on tour. So, right, the field average, right, just to remind yourselves, right, is 7.8 per round. So why would they have these guys at like 9? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. If they do the same thing over here in Underdog, like I'll fade them over there too. So they haven't quite posted the board over there. Of course, guys, right, for all the exposure that I'm getting to, right, make sure to check out my Patreon page. That's where I'm going to be posting everything tonight. But yeah, that's a little bit of a taste of what I'm dealing with on those 2 sites. So to circle back to pick 6, I don't hate like some of these overs on like a Hayden Buckley sort of player at 69.5. There's probably some overs that we could cook up there too. So like Zach Johnson kind of sticks out to me. So we'll go with those 2. Let's find some birdie unders that we could take. So at 3.5 birdies, if we could find like a really low tier player, I think that we can make that work. Maybe bogeys or worse is better. Maybe an over, right? And more Kawa at 1.5. This is the kind of slip that I'd go with on pick 6. Like I said before, I don't think this board is as good as some of the other ones. I think if anything, the hardest thing is to find the under, which actually we don't even have in this slip. I just realized like these are still three overs. The under's the really hard projection to find. Maybe you could do it with fantasy points, but I don't really even know how they calculate this exactly. At least like it's not easy to calculate in my head out here with fantasy points. If it's the same as their DraftKings points, I guess I could like compare to my projections, which would be easy enough, but I'm not sure if that's how they do it. Let's see. We got to find like an under on birdies, I guess. Like, ugh. We could go Davis Riley and take that. I mean, just for the sake of this stream, this is what I'm going to say out here for that slip, but I've got to say, like, it's not my favorite slip out there in human history. Those top two props is 2 overs on strokes. I love this under on birdies, like for Davis Riley. Like, I feel like that's a decent lean for sure. I like the over on bogeys more, right? That we took on Underdog, but it works at least right out there for that slip. I'm gonna go grab a water. We're gonna come back. We're gonna do the hard rock bet section, and then we're gonna keep this thing going. So I'll be right back, guys. I gotta grab a water. My throat is killing me, and my water is out. I was thinking to myself, I was like, we could end the stream. I could get a water and I'd feel better. I was like, or we could go through all the hard rock stuff that I want to. We could, do that kind of thing, cook it up and take our time. And I think that's a better idea. So let me go ahead, bring up hard rock bets, see if we can do that here real quick. So let me bring up that on this tab and we'll get cooking on that side with some matchups and stuff. Went a little bit too quick right there. All right, here we go. So let me share my screen right here and let's get through this. So hopefully they have them posted. So they've got like 3 matchups posted so far. They've got Kisner versus Noren up, just a little head-to-head. You've got Hardy versus Siwoo, and then Merritt versus Cootie. I mean, I guess I think Siwoo's going to beat Hardy, and I think that Norman's going to beat Kevin Kisner, but like, I don't know. Like these odds are probably just like okay right out there in those 2 matchups. I wish we actually had everything to look at here. So let me see. Is it on the other tab? Come on. Is that really that's all they have to offer at this stage? Let me refresh. Maybe there's more. Oh, that's kind of lame. So let's go over here to FanDuel. We'll just look at it on that side. So I'm not going to be able to get these bets in myself quite yet, but we'll look at some of the 2 balls and we'll just do it over here. So let's look at some of the later end, guys. That's where I think we can probably find an edge here. So the later starters are just actually kind of looks like it's kind of spread out randomly. They don't have these sorted by time or anything, which is kind of annoying, but we'll make do. We'll find these where we can. What I want to find on here are players that are really good with these moving day pins. So I don't know who Spieth is matched up against in his 2-ball, but I don't hate the idea of taking him for this sort of bet. So I already have my search bar up. Let's go ahead and just like type in Jordan. Oh, it's not print. That was not what I was trying to do. Let's go up Jordan Spieth. So Jordan Spieth's going against Kevin Yu, and he's like minus 190. Now, minus 190 odds is probably just juiced through the roof, so probably not a great number, but it was at least worth looking at. Who was Siwoo Kim against? Let's see what his line was over here. Look at this, minus 230. That line on Hard Rock is actually pretty decent. In fact, I might bet that. Yeah, I got to log into my version on my phone because I got to like type in a password, everything if I do it on this PC. But if I do it on my phone right here, it'll be a lot easier. So let's definitely bet that at minus 155 over there on the Hard Rock side. And is that the same player? Is that where I'm getting this confused? Yeah, right. It's a difference of player, right? No, they're both against Nick Hardy, so it's the same matchup, which you would expect for two ball. I didn't know if this was a two ball or just the two ball matchup. Maybe that's why it was different. That's crazy. That's a crazy difference in odds. So I'll take advantage of that for sure. We'll put a full 155 on it, so full unit bet out here on this bet. So it's this one right here, by the way. If you're confused on what we're taking right here, other sports books, it's minus 200 or more odds, minus 230 over there in FanDuel, which frankly, that feels like the right sort of like odds for that kind of bet. And we're getting a much better number over here on, because I think it's just because their board's just dropping. So let's go ahead and nuke it before it moves. All right, there we go. All right, bet is locked into my end out there on the Siwoo Kim prop. So he's head-to-head against Nick Hardy, who's a little bit erratic. Siwoo Kim's just a much better player. And minus 155 odds really isn't all that terrible, in my opinion. So I'll take that, even if he didn't have his best round out there in round two. We'll see what else they post for the board. So let's look at the other groups. Now, I wasn't really looking at the odds before. I was kind of just like looking at the players. Norman versus Kisner, like, is this a crazy value too? Like, I definitely lean that way. I just want to see if the odds are crazy off again. So Norman's minus 175, so it's a little bit of value comparatively. He's only minus 145 over there. And then this one is plus money on both sides. I think Cootie should be the favorite, right? Let me see. What do they have over here on FanDuel? They have Cootie as also, right, about even money, but he's actually minus 110. Huh. But you get your money back for a tie over there. So that's why obviously the odds are a little bit different on all of these actually, right? That's why the odds are a little bit different too. So keep that in mind, right? But the minus 155 difference to minus 230 is more than that difference. So just like keep that in mind that that is part of the difference that you're going to see in the odds between these two boards. But if there's a massive difference in odds, that's where you can get some value. So unfortunately, we don't have more to choose from over here on this side. So we're just going to look through some of these matchups in general. Let me see what we can find here. So you get Sanjay going against Pearson Cootie. Obviously, I would favor Sanjay, but minus 280 odds is just way too much to kind of go after myself. Let's see if we can find a more competitive one to bet. So Aaron Rai versus McNeely is a more competitive matchup. Of course, ties are void over here, which is kind of nice. And they have Aaron Rai as the favorite, which I would agree with in most circumstances. But this week, Mav is playing better golf than Aaron Rai. So I would argue that he's probably somebody you should take it like plus money. I wish he was like plus 110. Like I wish you were getting a little bit of extra bonus there, right? Plus on top of just the even money plus 100. But on a 50-50 coin flip, I would take Mav McNeely just because he's playing better this week. Like just from the eye test, like Aaron Rai has been all over the place, especially early round one. I mean, he just played like complete dog shit for his first 10 holes. He's been a little bit better since, but McNeely, a little bit more slow and steady. He's kind of been that way all of 2024. I'd rather have him this week. He just feels like he has more of his mojo. Feels like he's got his feet under him a little bit better. And it's not like McNeely has a very consistent like ball striking heavy game. He's all putting it around the green, so he does it a different way. I'm okay with that though. Like he always does that, right? Like he's very consistently inconsistent. Right? Like he's consistently missing greens and having to save himself, but he's very good at doing so. So I kind of like that. They got a Riley Buckley one. I would favor Riley, but they kind of have that reflected in the odds. And see, I like finding the closer ones because that's where you can potentially find value. I would favor Dietrich, but he's minus 150, so I'd probably avoid that one. Streelman Svensson. Let's see. Simpson versus McCarthy. I definitely favor Denny, and I honestly even think the minus 150 is not that bad. So I would throw that one in the shopping cart there. I can't play on FanDuel, so I can't play that unless they post over here in Hard Rock, which would be great. But none such options at this stage. But over here at FanDuel, I would like to take that if that was possible. I wish. Let's see, what else can we find? Bradley Straka is a pretty good matchup. We've got Keegan is actually the slight underdog, but he is minus 105. I actually don't hate Keegan. And I bet Straka this week, right? Straka is one of my top plays. Keegan's just kind of like the wily veteran, right? It's going to be super windy out there. Now, Straka won at PGA National on windy conditions, so he can do it as well. But Keegan, I have a little bit more of a trust factor with. So I guess I wouldn't hate him at minus 105. Like, especially if the ties are void. Like, I kind of like those bets a lot more. Where else are we at? So Scheffler versus Tom Kim. Scheffler's the huge favorite. Maybe you play a little bit of spoiler ball with Tom Kim. I actually think that's much more in play than people would expect. Tom Kim has nuclear rounds, so let alone, right, if Scheffler kind of has an off day, if Tom Kim goes out there and just plays spoiler ball, right, with like a 5 or 6 under, like he could cash that kind of ticket that way. We'll stick it to those top two, but I don't hate the idea of that plus 260. What else? So Gim Damon's a little bit close, but I would favor Gim, but minus 165 feels like a little bit much. Let me see if there's anything I passed up on earlier. So they have Finau Woodland, Finau deserving favorite, and a pretty big one there. So just, I kind of agree with that. Let's look at Morikawa Minwoo. So Morikawa's the favorite. I agree with that. But does Minwoo go out there and spoil him? Like, I kind of feel like there's upside there, but kind of like the Tom Kim prop, like it's probably not enough value for me to get there. Jordan minus 190. I don't know if that's enough juice. Like, he obviously favored, right, over Kevin Yu, but minus 190, right? Some of these other big matchups, right, are like minus 230, minus 250 juice. I kind of feel like Jordan should have that same sort of number. Yeah, those would be the main matchups I'm looking at, right? Bonus one would also be that Tom Kim plus 260. So those would be some of the matchups that I consider. Unfortunately, Hard Rock Bet only had that one posted that we could take. If you're just joining us and you missed out on that, that was the Siwoo Kim at minus 155 over there for the 2-ball matchup. So a tie would be a loss, right? Because you do have this option for a draw, which is why the odds are so wildly different compared to other books. But I still think a little bit of value there at minus 155. So that's it for the prop side. We'll circle back to the prop side, see if there's anything posted for greens or for fairways. If so, we'll talk about them. If not, we're done and getting on out of here. So it doesn't look like they're posted, unfortunately. Might be done. But any questions? Where are we at? Keegan's dialed. Agreed with that. Webb Simpson over 2.5 on Prize Pick. So for birdies, I'm assuming that's what you mean, right? So yeah, he's down there at 2.5 birdies. I would lean over, but I'm definitely not joining you there. It's asking much for a guy that's getting up there in age. Keegan is dialed. Yeah, hopefully he can continue it. That's for sure. Where are we at? This guy's got some funny takes, that's for sure. Barry too. Barry's having a good time out here on Friday. You love it. Aaron Riot is a gutless loser, is what he's saying about the guy. He's got the iron head covers and the double gloves. It's a tough scene. He definitely get made fun of at the local muni down here in Florida. So couldn't necessarily blame you for having that kind of take on him. Riley over 2.5 birdies. Yeah, so same thing with Webb. I would definitely lean on his over, but I worry about the conditions late, right? Especially with somebody like a Davis Riley, Hayden Buckley, for example. But I do think the birdie average would be close to 3 per round. So if they went out there and had an average day, they'd cover. Like same thing with the bogey line we took, right? If they had an average day, they'd go out there and cover. So I think it's a decent lead, right? If you went out there and took, especially Riley, I think he's the better option out of those two. But just know that there's let down upside, right? Like that he could go out there, kind of feel the nerves out there, right? Leading golf tournament. So that's within his range of outcomes, unfortunately. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for this live stream. I've got some lineups to get done before I head out of this house and get some stuff done. But looking forward to tomorrow and what's to happen over the next 2 days. Again, we've got some lineups in contention with some 6 of 6s. We've got some props to go out there and cash out for Saturday and Sunday. So first off, go ahead and smash the like button if you haven't already. And best of luck out there with your exposure. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can catch our live stream tomorrow night, going over what to expect from the play out there on Sunday. Like I said, should be a pretty decent leaderboard. I think there's a lot of guys up top that are going to falter over the next day or so. So I would expect this thing to kind of crunch up a little bit, probably get pretty tight as we head into Sunday. And if so, should be a pretty good viewing experience. So overall, looking forward to all of that. Hopefully our exposure can go quite well, and looking forward to seeing how it plays out. So like I said, appreciate support here on the channel, and I'll see you guys for that live stream out there for round.